Why, hello. Fancy seeing you there. It's the WAG, Sophie and Aleks.
Hello.
We're back.
I
know it's been such an embarrassing long time. And if you're on YouTube watching this, you've probably given up on us and just been like, unsubscribe if you had subscribed. No. Anyway, today we're here to talk about a very, very important topic, matters of the heart. Matters of the heart. Ain't nothing more poignant than matters of the heart, my grandma used to say.
Yeah, exactly.
So today we are talking about breakups. Discuss.
Yeah, go.
So, we were talking about this and we were saying, what should we film for our first video back in 2015?
Pour ourselves a cup of tea.
Oh yeah, so we can look really professional. Look, we have tea here. Breakups.
Cheers.
Cheers, here's to 2015. We thought we'd talk about breakups because we think that this is no matter who you are, what background you're from, whatever, it's one of just the biggest things that everybody goes through.
Yes, absolutely.
Is it not?
Yeah, I've been through a few myself.
Who hasn't, right?
Well, exactly. So, we thought it was quite a poignant thing. We seem to... We've doled out advice about breakups in the past. We thought we'd dole it out to the camera. Why not?
Have we?
I think
Given
so.
advice to people? I don't think even so much as giving advice, because I feel like one thing that works for someone doesn't really work for everybody, and I can't claim to be an expert and be like, here's what I would do.
Yeah,
but
so
I don't have any
generalize
not
it,
tips per se, but kind of like things we've learned from breakups in the past, and maybe if you're going through one right now, you want to know how other people do it. I don't know.
Exactly. So for me, then the kind of number one thing that I would recommend is taking some space away from the person. So with my relationship that I had like probably the worst breakup with was with my now husband. We broke up in the middle of our relationship before we got engaged and did all that stuff. And it was quite a long breakup actually. It was probably like about 6 months, and I think it was probably the best thing we ever did. I think rather than kind of clinging on to the relationship and sort of, even though I was devastated, saying what we can do, I think I just kind of said, okay, I'm just gonna take a step back. I think I dated a few people in between. Actually had a bit of a relationship in between as well, and I think the space away from each other actually gave us some perspective on the relationship. And so when we finally did sort of bump into each other like 6 months later, it was sort of like starting from afresh. There wasn't that, we weren't clinging on to all the kind of bad energy we had in our previous relationship, and so we kind of started over, and well, like the rest is history, and now we're married and stuff. And I truly think that was probably one of the best things we ever did, was the fact that we gave each other space and didn't try and rush back to sort of rekindle anything that happened.
Yeah, but I think that I agree with you, but I think that like for a lot of people who are just breaking up and maybe not intending to get back, whether you are intending to get back with the person or there's always going to be a good cop and a bad cop, and you're breaking up with someone and you've done the breaking up and you've really hurt them. It is so tempting when you're feeling a bit lonely and a bit unloved a few weeks into the breakup to pick up that phone for a booty call or to be like, hey, I want to be friends, whatever, and it just drags out the whole process. Like emotions are raw. True. From my experience, it's so tempting to do that, and a lot of people do that, and friends that do that, you're always like, don't do that. No, everyone knows just to leave it. If you're sure, leave it. If you want to be friends, by all means go ahead, but I just feel like you can't go from being in love with someone to be best friends next week. Oh, we've got all this in common, like what could go wrong? Like a lot can go wrong. Like it doesn't work like that for a reason. Like if you feel the need to be best friends, to maybe do it after a couple of years when everything's done, and then you can sort of, like you said, start from the beginning again, and whatever. But don't do that. Don't be that asshole that's kind of like, oh, I'm lonely and bored. I'm in a club and I'm drunk. It's 3 a.m. Ain't nothing open at 3 a.m. except for a pair of legs. That's what Tyra Banks' grandma said, and she's right. So that's number one.
Go Tyra Banks,
yeah, like that space thing. I think. Well,
I guess that's probably maybe point number 2 then, is just to like, if you're intending to be friends, I think that a lot of people do it because they're still sort of clinging on to the relationship, and I just don't.
Yeah, someone's always got a vested interest in it. Like
I think so, and I think unless like you've had literally the most amicable breakup in the history of the planet, where it's just like, I don't really fancy anyone. I don't fancy
Neither do I. We feel like roommates, but I still love you as a brother and as a friend.
Yeah.
Let's break up and move on.
Let's just stay friends. Or it's been like quite a while, and you have like new partnerships, new relationships. There's no history, or like not history, but there's no feelings there.
Yeah.
Yes, in that case, I think being friends can work. But I think generally speaking, there's always a vested interest, and I think it's gonna be pretty difficult being friends with your ex when you still have feelings for them, and he's like telling you about the latest person he's banging. So
it's just a bit strange.
Yeah.
Oh, and another thing that's very important, I think we spoke about this once before, is in that first week when things are hurting like hell on either side, like things are pretty raw and pretty shit and difficult to deal with, I just recommend, as hard as it sounds, it's really tempting to get into your pajamas, take time off work, and sit and cry all day watching rom-coms. And while that can be nice sometimes the good thing to do is time to just, a friend asks you out because they're trying to help, you don't feel like it, but get dressed up, make an effort,
absolutely.
take your mind off things, you know, go and have a few drinks, have a few laughs, think about and
That
talk
could be
about
tip number
other
3.
things. That is tip number 3, in fact.
Yeah.
We've segued into tip number 3.
Yeah.
Distract yourself.
Yeah.
Go to the gym. Feel good about yourself because you're going to feel rubbish. I mean, especially if
Absolutely.
you're the one that didn't want to break up, and even if you were, that's the time in your life when you're going to feel a little bit rubbish about yourself, like second guessing.
Yeah.
We knew a friend of ours that broke up with her boyfriend a couple of years ago, and she was telling us, I just feel really ugly and really disgusting, and she never was and she never would be, but relationships,
That's the way you
breakups
feel, I
do
think.
that to you, and it's like, it can be tough to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when me and my husband broke up. I remember actually I called my 2 best friends and I was like, we broke up, and they're like, oh my god.
You didn't know me then, did you?
No.
But if you did,
I was still
she
living
would've called me.
I was still living in London at the time. But and I called them, and they literally, it was a Sunday, and they both like rushed. We like met up at the pub, and I got completely shit-faced. I think I had like 2 bottles of red wine, and one of my friends took me home and like spent the night. And the next day, I think I either went to work extremely hungover, or I think it was like a bank holiday or something, so we didn't have work the next day. So we spent the night, and the next day we just kind of like slouched around, did nothing. And I think sort of allowed myself those sort of 2 days just to act like a complete crazy asshole.
Yeah.
And just get really shit-faced and cry and till my face looked like a punching bag. And then afterwards, I remember actually another one of my really close friends had a birthday party the next weekend. And the last thing I wanted to do was go to this birthday party, because I knew people would be asking, oh, you know, where's your boyfriend, blah blah, and I had to explain that we broke up, and like it's literally the last thing I wanted to do was get dressed up and go. But I put on that sexy little black dress, I went out, and actually I remember it to be like a really, really fun night. And I think like it really helped just to like distract myself and go out and sort of accept all the invitations that were coming my way about dinners and going out. Because I think like when you're sat at home by yourself and you have time to think, that's really, those are really times that are the hardest. So I completely agree with your tip. I think like you just need to go out and distract yourself. Yeah.
And I think number 4 thing very important to sort of remember is hard times pass. So you really, when you are going through these hard times and things are really raw and you want to treat your friends like shit and say things, you still need to be accountable after that for the way that you act while you are on this emotional low. I think it's easy to think that like, oh, it's happening to me, it's never happened to anyone in the world, so I can just treat everyone how the fuck I want and go crazy. But the fact of the matter is, when it's over and said, everything's said and done, you need to be accountable for those actions. So if you call your ex 15 times a night like a crazy psychopath, which is, it's tempting, I know, and be like, take me back, oh, I'm drunk, I need you,
or just send really inappropriate text messages.
Yeah, like you're a beep, blah blah blah, and like you go around talking bad about them to other people. One day you will need to live with those actions. So, you know, although it can be hard, I think be the bigger person and just it will pass, and you'll look back on it and you'll think.
And also, just kind of
jog on,
finish things off. I just think like actually when me and my husband got back together at that time, when we sort of sat down,
becoming quite a personal one for you.
I know. when we were kind of talking about it, I remember him saying like he kind of, I think the reason why we were able to sort of get back together a bit more, and this is obviously for us that we got back together, but even like you say, if you happen to run into your ex in the future and stuff, when you keep things like grown up, at least so you don't send those like bitchy messages at 4 o'clock in the morning telling them how ugly they are and, you know, they have a small penis, whatever, blah blah. It's so much easier to then have to face them later on, whether it's you becoming friends again, or whether it's like you're getting back together, or just like running into them in the street.
Like just generally,
it just makes
the world doesn't need that negativity.
Yeah, it doesn't need that negativity, and I just feel like you will thank yourself for acting like a mature adult later down the line, because you're not you're not that girl, you're not that person.
Yeah, I mean, relationships are hard no matter what, they always will be, but that's what makes them worth it, and that's why people get into them. You can't say I'll never have another relationship. But so first video back, please forgive us if it was a bit rambly and a bit like blah blah,
trying to get back into it,
and now you're sort of like, what do I do? This hasn't helped me at all. Now I'm just even more confused than I was before.
Yeah, exactly.
We're sorry. Hopefully we'll
that.
make more of these videos soon, and do comment if you have anything specific that you want us to touch on. And with that, we bid you goodbye.
And a good day.
Wags signing out.
Bye.